Bless Unleashed is a free-to-play open-world action MMORPG. It was first released on Xbox back in February 2020. It is now coming to PS4 on October 22nd. You can become a founder right now if you're really keen, and you'll get a few in-game bonuses and a few days early access. Bless Unleashed will also be going into closed beta on PC on November the 4th, so I don't feel it will be too long until there is a solid release date. In this video I'll talk honestly about my own first impressions of the game to give you a feel for if you should try Bless Unleashed for yourself. We'll talk about the classes, the combat, the gameplay loop and feel of the game. We'll touch on if this is a pay to win type of game, and then I'll tell you about a few issues I've noticed so far on the PS4. Honestly guys, I was pretty excited to try this game out, but when I first started playing I wasn't too impressed to begin with. The in-game graphics aren't exactly the best I've ever seen, and that left me feeling a little disappointed before I'd really dug in. But as I began to make some progress, it really started to grow on me. You see, I lost my life many years ago to World of Warcraft, staying up till 3 AM with friends, running dungeons and grinding for loot drops, and then crawling into work the next day a broken man. So let me start by saying, and this is intended as a compliment, Bless Unleashed reminds me of World of Warcraft in many ways. The graphics are better in a sense, giving a more realistic feel, but they don't look as polished if that makes sense. The game still feels a little rough around the edges to me, but the combat is really engaging. The enemies are varied, there are world bosses and open world challenges. It has PvP, both battlegrounds and 3v3 arena style combat. There are a load of 5-man dungeons to jump into with matchmaking options available too. When you first start out in the game you will have to pick a class. Now the options to begin with are pretty limited, with only 5 base classes to choose from: Crusader, Berserker, Priest, Mage and Ranger. You can then pick a race and gender. Both race and gender have no impact on the gameplay and there are no racial abilities, so this part is purely cosmetic. The unfortunate thing is that race is locked to certain classes. As I said, the options are pretty limited for what you choose to play, but each of the 5 classes have a number of things called paths to choose from, which begin to open up as you level. Your choice of path will alter your combat abilities and will potentially change the way you play your character, so there will be a lot of variation as the game grows and develops. It really wouldn't surprise me if they eventually start to add in new classes once the game is fully launched on all platforms. The character customization is pretty detailed, letting you build your character and give them exactly the look you're after. It reminded me of the Neo 2 character customization in terms of the level of detail you can go to in some areas, but it isn't as good looking unfortunately. When you first start the game you enter into a dream. You're a level 40 character and you have a few enemies and a boss to fight, as the game teaches you the basics of combat. This is actually a really nice touch. It allows you to play for 10 minutes or so to get a feel for the class you picked and see if you like the gameplay before you invest any real time into a character. The combat is what really drew me in, giving me combinations of attacks to try out for each class, some based on raw damage output, others which have stuns or other mechanics weaved into the combination for more utility. There is a target lock-on system too, which I liked. I've spent a lot of time in games like Neo and Dark Souls, so being able to lock onto my current target is a real win for me in this type of game. Combat feels heavy and responsive. I found it engaging with every single class. The attack combinations are done pretty simply but offer some decent variation in how I wanted to engage different targets. There is a dodge roll too to get yourself out of trouble. I've seen some complaints about the fact on Xbox there was no attack cancelling, but honestly in my own gameplay I managed to dodge out of trouble on a number of occasions mid-attack, so perhaps this has been fixed. After you're done with the test out of your character you then get into the main story. It's typical MMO type gameplay from here on, talking to NPCs, fetching and carrying, killing X number of creatures, etc. It was around this point when I felt a little put off for about half an hour or so. After feeling how good the combat was during the test, but then being set back to level 1 and talking to people about moving their boxes around felt like a bit of a downer. But the bad feeling didn't last too long. Once I was past the initial storyline stuff and into the open world, I began to realise that this game could quite possibly be really good if I gave it a little time. Fighting my first world boss, attempting to solo it and getting my ass kicked, but then coming back with a few other people around and smashing him. Beginning to learn the ropes on crafting. There's cooking, alchemy, blacksmithing, leatherwork and clothwork for the different armour sets. One thing I will say is that a lot of effort seems to have put into the look of your character. When you put on different pieces of armour, they're rendered really well. There is also a transmog system so that you can make your armour and weapons look like anything you've unlocked. This makes sense given that a lot of the monetization is set around cosmetics, but I'll come to that shortly. I tried out matchmaking at level 6 for an encounter I had to do. This was instanced, and finding a match was nice and quick even though I'm playing in early access, so the game barely has a population yet. One thing I really liked in this game was the new player experience. The way the game teaches you to fight, teaches you how to work around the in-game systems for crafting, teaches you how to find quests, set waypoints and navigate through the world. It's actually really good. Before this, I actually started trying out Black Desert Online. I'll most likely do a video about that when there is time. That's another MMO with really good combat, but their new player experience is dreadful and bewildering. I'll get back to it one day. Anyway, the menu navigation and the combat button mapping is really decent, so after about an hour or two in your gameplay, you'll have a decent feel for where most things are and how to do the basics without feeling too lost. So in terms of the monetization side of things, is it pay to win? I'd say no. There is definitely an element of pay to progress and pay for convenience, but it won't outright give you things that would be game breaking. The sorts of things you can pay for are bonuses to XP gains so you can progress a little more quickly, bonuses to gathering speed so you can amass more materials quickly. There is also the option to pay for additional character slots, which I feel is fair. If you want to invest enough time into the game to have more than 2 characters, then you're clearly enjoying the game, and throwing the developers a few dollars is only right. You can also pay for more bag space, which is convenient, but you'll be able to unlock more bag space yourself over time if you're playing the game and finding the right items. The rest of the monetization system is centered around cosmetics and mounts, which again doesn't really break anything and is purely based on your own choice and financial limitations. From what I've experienced so far, you'll be able to play the game and enjoy it perfectly well without spending a penny if that's what you want to do. In terms of bugs I've noticed and minor complaints, there's nothing too dramatic from my own point of view. I noticed some pop-ins, that is to say, if you approach an area, the NPCs might not be visible immediately and will drop in a few seconds late. It's not ideal, but I suspect it's the sort of issue the developers will get on top of eventually with server balancing, etc. I hope so anyway. A lot of the quests are not voice acted, it's text only, which is fine. Not what I first expected, but I guess it's a lot to ask to have every single quest giver have their own voice acting. Overall, I loved playing the game. It's the typical MMO gameplay loop feel, but with action combat which felt great. I haven't jumped into anything endgame yet or the PvP, this is just a first impressions video, but I'm planning on spending more time on Bless Unleashed in the near future. If this video does well, then I'll most likely create more content, perhaps digging into the PvP and the endgame content value. I hope you found this useful. Leave me a like and comment if you don't mind, sub if you're new, and I'll wrap it up there. Thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, bye bye now.